to the New Era Superintendents Leadership Accelerator, a special monthly series profiling real human stories about leadership and life from our member superintendents. And today we're happy to have as our guest Dr. Al Lewis from the Weymouth Township School District in New Jersey, and our host for the Leadership Accelerator, Stephen Murley, professor of education at the University of Iowa and former superintendent of Green Bay and other districts across the country. So welcome, gentlemen. And Steve, it's all yours.
Thank you, Matt. So as Matt said, today's our kickoff, and we are really excited to have as our first guest on here, Dr. Alfred Lewis, who joins us from Weymouth Township Schools in New Jersey. And we know that time is your most precious resource, and so our goal is to give you a quick opportunity to dig into a leadership challenge that another superintendent is facing. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Al here and ask him to introduce his district, his students, his community, and tell us a little bit about the challenge that he's facing right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Pleasure to be here speaking with you and with everyone who's going to be watching this later. And same to you, Matt. Really honored to be here. My name is Al Lewis. I am the superintendent of Weymouth Township in Atlantic County, which is in rural southern New Jersey. It's a very small community. We have about 200 students in a single pre-K to 8 building. We have about 50 employees total. We have the most amazing teachers, most amazing administrators. We all wear many, many hats in Weymouth Township. And I would say that is probably one of the biggest things to know about working in a very small school district is that no one person does just one job. I often tease we have a very close relationship with Town Hall because the mayor is one of our bus drivers and his councilman is one of the other bus drivers and his wife works in the cafeteria and one of our van drivers is the deputy mayor. So when I say that there is a town hall meeting in front of my school every morning, I mean it.
Thanks for setting that context for us. When you think about a challenge that you're encountering right now, can you tell us a little bit about what brought that forward, where you're at with it right now, and then we can dig into a little bit about some of the details there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the biggest thing that we're facing right now in New Jersey is legislative action that resulted, it was called S2. It resulted in a major restructuring of school funding for school districts in New Jersey. So there were winners and there were losers. Smaller districts in general were losers in that trade. So over the past 7 years, Weymouth Township has lost about 60% of its state aid through that funding formula. So we went from about 1.5 million in state aid to just several hundred thousand. So for us, really dramatically looms over everything that we want to do. The improvements we want to put into place for kids and the adults in the building just really hampers our ability to adequately fund our schools and adequately fund the programs that we want to do and staff the building. So one of the first things I did upon my appointment as superintendent here was to really take stock of where we were spending our money and how we were spending our money to make sure that they were all really good returns on investment and that they were all really high leverage projects. Because with so few funds, we really don't have the ability to mess up when it comes to financial allocations. Everything's got to be done really, really well. And our business administrator, Dawn Leary, has been key to that, getting the right people in the right places and letting them do their thing.
So when you think about having to deal with that, there's obvious implications for what happens in the classroom, that interaction between teachers and students. And we know that in the end, we judge ourselves by the success of the kids in our classroom. And so when you think about the impact that this has now and will have in the future on making sure that students are prepared for each grade level as they move through the system and as then they get ready to graduate from your system, what types of curriculum and teaching and learning challenges do you anticipate impacting your classrooms, your families, the district?
Being a rural community, obviously there's some nuance there when it comes to education, like chronic absenteeism is sky high here in Weymouth, and we're doing our best to combat that. We're about double the state's average right now, which we're not thrilled with. So we've begun implementing some more like parent education side of things to make sure that parents adequately understand the impacts of being absent on a regular basis. And then, luckily I inherited a school district that had very high achievement for its size. They had just come off of winning a national blue ribbon in 2021, which was a major milestone for the school. But then, of course, the COVID pandemic hit and impacted our scores. So our scores now for reading and math are really not where we want them to be, in particular middle school math. So we're really trying to push the needle north. We've done some things. We put some things in place over the last 2.5 years. We have some plans in place for the future. And I'm actually getting ready on Thursday to talk to our local county school boards group, about the successes that we've had. Quite frankly, they invited me to come out and speak about, kind of the dramatic turnaround we've had here in Weymouth. I keep branding it as we've had a little bit of like a renaissance. The school was in the 90s was a major beacon for the community, and then it kind of fell into some rough times. And, I've taken the reins over here and really tried to shine the school in the best light possible. Because there are amazing people doing amazing things. But you just need to showcase those things for the community to hear about it and know about it. So reading and math are definitely key, right? They're the two biggest subjects. And I say that as somebody who comes from a science background. So I'm well equipped to say that reading and math obviously are so keyly fundamental. And we've done a few things that we've put into place. And like I said, a few things that are to come.
Well, I can understand that as a social studies teacher. I always said, give me a kid who knows how to read, and if they haven't had any social studies before, I can take care of that if they can read at grade level. So I'm right there with you on that. So when you think about, I know you talked about having the town hall meeting right in front of the school when the buses drop off, but when you think about community and stakeholder expectations and coming out of the pandemic and the challenges that you were facing, how did they shape the challenge that you had there with reading and math, and how did that influence the decisions that you went through as you look to improve, and you described a renaissance, bring you back to where you were before?
Yeah. When we came in, my administration came in, we had basically zero community engagement. Our HSA had gone defunct during COVID. They actually held a town hall meeting to see what people wanted in the next superintendent. And I'll keep a long story very short, but as a candidate for the position, I secretly attended the meeting in a hoodie and kind of sat in the back of the room to see if I could get a little bit of insight. And I was the only person who attended, so I couldn't hide. And quickly came out that I was a candidate for the job. But it was illuminating to know that community engagement was something that's seen as a weakness. So we resurrected the HSA. We have a really robust home and school association now. They do amazing things. One of those, like, what does a superintendent do all day? Like, I don't know, what's the playbook on creating an HSA? I never had to do that before. You just kind of figure it out as you go. But we realized that really the community valued the school and its input into kids' education, that they really were not looking for us to send a lot home. They were really looking for us to extend the school day for them, because the parents, they're busy too, right? They're working. A lot of cases by us were by Atlantic City. They work at the casinos, or they hold two different jobs in the household. And so what we did is we implemented a homework club twice a week after school. That was put in place by Helene Fulmer, who was our curriculum director. And we extended the school day for kids. Likewise, our before care and after care works on homework with kids, helps them, kind of be more prepared. We've expanded our after school and before school club offerings. We offer yoga before school for kids and mindfulness. We offer all kinds of academic areas afterwards. And then during the school day, we looked at things that we could do to tweak our schedule to improve student engagement with their teacher. So what we did is we created a rotating intervention block. Our school is the logo is the Hawks. That's our mascot. And so we call it the Hawk Huddle, where a few Hawks at a time can huddle up with their teacher for 20 minutes a day on a rotating basis and get small group instruction, no matter where their academic achievement is. So if they're a gifted student, they're getting 20 minutes of dedicated time with their teacher for enrichment. They're middle of the road, they can use that really however they see fit, whether it's like a specific need or some kind of reinforcement. Then if they're a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention student, they're getting extra tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, which has really worked well so far. We put that in place last year, and now this year we've upped the ante. A good friend of mine is the CEO of an ed tech, and he donated his program, Lumos Learning, to my entire school free of charge. It's an intervention program that helps kids get prepared for the New Jersey standardized assessment and uses AI to tutor them. And we've begun using that during our Hawk Huddle as well. So we get a little bit of like that diagnostic data, and then that's what they can work on when they're in their Hawk Huddle with their teacher. So we're doing all we can. And then, like I said, we have some plans in place for the future as well. We promoted a teacher to lead teacher, and she does purely instructional coaching, special ed instruction, and intervention instruction. So we've dedicated a full-time staff member solely to academic supports for teachers and for students. And we're really excited so far with how that's gone, and we're really expecting big things in the future too. And then beyond that, of course, we have our eyes on some like programmatic changes as well, like science of reading, and investigating new math curricula as well.
That's fantastic. So when you listen to that, one of the things that stands out to me is that when we think about first and second order change, I think a lot of people see the introduction of AI into schools as part of that second order change. For some people, there's a fear factor that goes along with that. A lot of that has to do with a lack of understanding. What was the initial reaction in your homework huddles when you looked at deploying a tool that wasn't just the teacher in the classroom or the paraprofessional standing next to the kid?
Yeah, the first part was setting up the expectations, right? Like we did an initial training, and I gave people a glimpse into what it was and what it wasn't, and people were really excited. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised at the high level of excitement that people had. That they were almost like relieved a little bit that they didn't have to do something, right? That there could be something that would automatically perform a task or grade an assignment for them, and showcasing it to them, they were immediately on board with it, which has been great.
How about community? Did you have any community reaction to the deployment of the AI assistance in that process?
No, I mean the initial reaction was positive. Like the social media launch for it to get it out to communities. We're big on social media engagement here in Weymouth. I'm going to be presenting about that at FETC soon. So that initial kind of like gut reaction out of parents was really just excitement that we were doing something additional for their kids. And I think we've kind of hit this quorum of folks who have used AI enough that it's not as mysterious as it was maybe in the past year or so. I would say most people have at least heard of AI and heard of ChatGPT and some of the other like more common applications that use AI. So they're really not as that initial fear, like you're saying.
So, Al, when you're dealing with something that is, as I said, maybe considered by a lot of people second order change, you talked about the seamless acceptance inside and outside the district, which is great to hear. Did you have any roadblocks when you went through the implementation, especially in your implementation outside of the school day?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, change is hard, right? I mean, we know that anytime you change even the smallest detail about something, people are going to have some obstacles to it, whether on purpose or just the natural order of things. And I can say that for teachers who had changed assignments in the previous year, they were already kind of preoccupied with new subject, new curricula, new students, and this felt like one additional thing. And that's where we got coverage and brought in people from the company to come in and give more training and be a resource if there were questions. And our curriculum director, Michelle Mascali, has been amazing, just supporting the teachers and making a space for them to, whether it's vent or ask questions or learn something new, just to be able to take that time and make that change. And people have come around, and we have to use data to monitor that. And we say like, hey, look, let's try and do this a little more, or maybe we'll try and use this in a different way. Like, how can we make this work for you? And we realize that not everyone is going to do things all the same, and that's okay. But we create the sandbox for them to play in. And we say, as long as you're kind of within these bounds of what we're doing, you're good, right? That's good play. It's when you go out of the sandbox and say, I'm not going to use it at all, or I'm going to use it in some way that it's not designed for. That's when we say like, well, no, let me help you rein this in a little bit and let's do this. And it all roots in the mission, right? The mission is for kids to improve their achievement so they can be productive citizens. The goal is not like a gotcha or to give teachers an extra chore to do or make their life harder. Everything we do is geared towards our mission that all Hawks deserve a proper education, and we're here to provide that.
So I know that as a forward-thinking leader, this isn't something that you just pulled out and put in place, and so you were really deliberate. You've alluded to that as you've gone through this process. Was there anything that came up for you that was an unexpected challenge? You didn't anticipate that when you put the game plan together to roll this out.
Honestly, nothing really comes to mind there. I can say that it was a shock that we were going to implement it at all. It wasn't on my radar. I would never think to ask someone, to like donate a program or anything like that to my school. It was kind of like a nice October surprise, so to speak, like towards the end of the summer. And it was a little bit of like spinning wheels to make sure we could get everything prepped for the September launch for it. But it went swimmingly well. And that's the beauty of a small district as well, right? It's not like we have 500 schools and 20,000 students and all these people that you have to communicate with. When you're in a small place, the blessing and the curse of it is the group is so small. You can kind of just walk down the hallway and say, hey, we're going to use this now. Is that good? Okay, thanks. And then just keep walking and everybody's okay with it.
So knowing that, and knowing that, as you said, it came up unexpectedly for you, if you had it to do all over again, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, I can say that in my prior experience as a STEM supervisor, I always really like to have September planned by May.
Hmm.
And that way, when folks, they could get their teacher's edition or their materials prepped and they could go home for the summer or to whatever else they did over the summer and have that information ahead of time and feel really, really confident in what they were doing on the first day of school. That is typically how I like to do things. This was obviously a huge benefit and a huge boon to the district. So nobody really was upset by that. But it is typically not. I don't really like for August to be a time for something new. I like for that to really just be the final touches on having a great school year.
And that's very understandable, right? It's much easier to manage that change when you've got a little bit longer runway. So as a superintendent, as an educational leader, beyond the ability to have some additional time for implementation, what's your biggest takeaway from this implementation?
And not be afraid of trying something new. I think we would like to model that for the employees, and then likewise, I think our teachers want to model that for our students. Like as you said, AI is a new and emerging technology. I don't believe we've really even scratched the surface of its capabilities, and it certainly is iterating at an alarming rate. But if you had asked me 6 months ago, would we be implementing an AI enhanced curriculum platform, I would have emphatically said no, we're just not ready for it yet. I don't believe we've done enough of the groundwork, but we did it and we modeled to everybody that it's okay to not know everything, right? It's okay to go into something and say, I think this is going to work, but let's see what happens. And then you course correct and you have to model that flexibility as well.
That's great. So when you think about where you're at, because I know as you shared this, right, we know you're in the middle of that implementation process. Have you seen any gains yet in terms of student achievement? And it's probably informative data, but has it been in place long enough for you to start to see any movement?
So I can say that we did just get our last year's results for the NJSLA, and initial results from that first year of change from last year do show that we've had some modest gains in most areas that we're targeting. Some areas have yet to see growth, and I think one or two areas saw a bit of a backslide, but minor. So we are looking formatively at some of our assessment data from this year, and that looks promising. And we believe we're going to continue to grow this year with standardized testing as
So
well.
then last question for you. I'm a superintendent somewhere else. My district looks close enough to yours that I can learn from your story. What practical advice would you give somebody situated that way if they were considering doing this kind of work, especially with their literacy program in their schools?
I would say primarily the first thing I would want folks to do is reach out to me. I want to be a resource to my colleagues across the country. You can find me on LinkedIn or on our school website or on social media. I'd be happy to sit there and chat with you and kind of like coach you along and help you out. I believe we all have to support each other. The superintendency is a very lonely position. You do, even as a servant leader, you do sit alone at the top, and there are some things that are solely privy to you, and that's it. And sometimes I call my colleagues across the county here in Atlantic County and I say, hey, this is going on. What would you do or what have you done? And they've always been amazing to me. So if I can ever pay that forward for someone else who's in my shoes, I'd be happy to do so. And then second to that would be, just like we were trained to do, grab a committee of stakeholders. And the first thing you need to do is cast a vision. What are you even trying to work towards before you go and put some implementation in place? And then once you have that vision clear and that common language clear among the stakeholder group, then you can really get down into the weeds and say, this is a potential solution to the problem. Now, how do we actionize this and how do we get it done?
Well, we really appreciate you being here and for sharing your story. It's always a pleasure for us to be able to showcase the type of impactful and behind the scenes work that we know superintendents and school leaders do, but not everybody gets to see. Obviously, the impact that this has on your kids, their ability to learn and their ability to demonstrate that through their achievement is really powerful. And so we applaud you for the work that you're doing, and we thank you for being here and sharing that with our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.